Smack. A cold, sticky cake slams into my face. Buttercream plugging my nose, sugar scratching my eyelids raw. The conference room at Titan Industrial Equipment falls dead silent for exactly 3 heartbeats. Then the laughter starts, rolling waves of it from my former colleagues, phones already out and recording, like this is breaking news. My son Brady laughs high and cracking, the sound cutting through the fluorescent buzz overhead. My wife Miranda stands close enough that her sharp perfume cuts through the vanilla frosting smell, holding up her iPhone like she's documenting the moon landing. The break room transforms into a theater stage under those harsh lights, every detail suddenly hyper-visible. My heart jumps once, then settles into something steady and cold. Not angry, just clear, crystal clear, like looking through clean glass after years of smudged windows. I breathe through my mouth, tasting butter fat mixed with artificial vanilla and the metallic tang of humiliation. 1 beat, 2, 3. I pull a napkin from the stack by the leftover pizza boxes, wiping in long, deliberate strips, letting chunks of cake fall onto the conference table with wet splats next to warm Dr. Pepper cans and paper plates. The custom message on what's left of the cake reads, "Happy early retirement, breadwinner," in cheerful blue icing. Professional lettering, probably costs $70. Miranda never does anything halfway. "All right," I say softly, my voice carrying further than it should in the sudden quiet. I walk straight out of the conference room, past the motivational posters about teamwork and excellence, past the cubicles where I built relationships that made this company millions in revenue over 15 years, and push through the glass doors into the brutal Austin heat. July in Texas hits you like opening an oven door. The parking lot shimmers with heat waves, and my truck sits alone in visitor parking because my employee parking privileges ended this morning with the restructure meeting. 15 years of pulling into the same spot, gone with a handshake and a severance check. I climb into the cab, start the engine, and drive home through hill country traffic that's gotten worse every year since the California exodus began. Past Tesla charging stations and organic coffee shops that sprouted up like weeds when tech money moved in, transforming neighborhoods where families lived for generations into investment opportunities. The garage door rumbles open to my workshop sanctuary. Here, surrounded by organized tool chests and the half-restored 1970s Chevelle. I've been nursing back to life on weekends for 3 years. I finally let myself breathe. The concrete floor still holds the day's heat. A box fan clicks rhythmically in the corner, moving hot air around like a prayer wheel. This is where I think best. 20 minutes later, Brady pokes his head through the door from the kitchen, still grinning like he's won something. "Dad, you should have seen your face when the cake hit. Mom got it all on video. It's going to be hilarious on her Instagram stories. Probably go viral." "I'm sure it will," I say, not looking up from organizing my socket set by size, a meditation I've performed 1,000 times. "Come on, don't be like that. It was just a joke to cheer you up. You're always so serious about everything." He shifts his weight, designer sneakers squeaking on the concrete. "The severance package is pretty good, right? You could take some time, travel, figure out what's next." "What's next?" Like I'm some midlife crisis waiting to happen, like 15 years building relationships in industrial equipment. Sales just evaporates because some MBA in Dallas decided our region needed optimizing and right-sizing, and whatever other buzzwords they use to make firing people sound strategic. I set down the ratchet and look at my son. 26 years old, makes decent money helping local businesses boost their social media presence. Still lives at home because Austin rent prices have gone completely insane. Good kid mostly, just doesn't understand that some jokes cost more than others. "Your mother put a lot of thought into that cake," I say. He shifts uncomfortably, probably catching something in my tone that he can't quite identify. "She wanted to cheer you up, show everyone you're taking this well. You know how she is about appearances." How she is about appearances. Yes, I know exactly how Miranda is about appearances. The perfectly staged Instagram photos of our authentic life. The carefully curated stories about her real estate success. The way she talks about her tech startup clients like they're visiting royalty instead of 20-somethings with more venture capital than business sense. People want stories to start with the explosion, the moment everything goes sideways and revenge plots begin. In my life, it started in quieter places, Waiting rooms at the unemployment office where they pretend calling it career transition services makes it less humiliating. Bank statements showing Miranda's luxury real estate commissions doubling while my steady paycheck disappeared. The dinner table where she talked about million-dollar listings while I pretended the severance would last forever. Miranda kept her real estate practice humming along like a perfectly tuned engine. Austin's market was absolutely on fire. California refugees fleeing west with tech money burning holes in their pockets, young entrepreneurs buying houses sight unseen as investment properties, longtime families getting priced out of neighborhoods they'd called home for decades. She had the golden touch, or so she told everyone at the country club pool parties. I used to pick her up from Saturday showings in her white Mercedes, the one she bought herself as a business investment. We'd get barbecue at Franklin's if the line wasn't too long, drive home through the neighborhoods she was helping transform $1 million sale at a time. Somewhere along that route, the tone of our conversations changed from partnership to performance review. She started using words like drive and ambition and vision with a sharp edge that said I didn't possess them. She'd talk about her clients, especially the young tech founders with more money than sense, always bright and energetic and hungry for the next big opportunity. Cody's really changing the Austin market became her favorite dinner conversation. His startup is revolutionizing logistics software, super innovative approach to supply chain optimization. He's looking at properties for corporate retreats, satellite offices, that kind of forward-thinking investment strategy. Cody. Of course his name was Cody, probably wore expensive sneakers and drank kombucha and used words like disrupt in casual conversation. The first time I knew something fundamental had shifted, she came home with a new purse that cost more than my truck payment. Italian leather, she said, setting it on the kitchen island like a trophy. Hermes, though she pronounced it wrong. A client appreciation gift, she explained, not quite meeting my eyes. You know how grateful they get when you find them the perfect property. Then she reached past me for a glass of wine, Pinot Grigio from a vineyard whose name I couldn't pronounce, and smelled like expensive cologne I didn't recognize, modern, sophisticated. The kind tech guys wear to networking events where they pitch revolutionary ideas that usually amount to apps nobody asked for. I didn't ask questions right away. I watched. That's what 15 years in industrial sales teaches you. You listen for the tells, you wait for patterns to emerge. You build your case methodically before you make your pitch. Rushing to judgment costs deals, and this felt like the biggest deal of my life. I met with Wesley Torres for coffee at a diner off South Lamar that still serves breakfast all day and doesn't charge extra for real butter on your toast. Wesley and I grew up 3 streets apart in East Austin back when it was genuinely East Austin, before the food trucks and boutique hotels transformed it into a destination. He went to law school after the Army. I went into sales. Different paths, same neighborhood code. He owed me a favor from 1998 when his transmission died the week before his bar exam, and I helped him rebuild it in my parents' driveway, working by shoplight until 3 in the morning so he could make it to the test. Wesley never forgot debts like that. Good lawyers don't. "What are we talking about, Rich?" he asked, stirring his coffee like it might hold secrets. Wesley had the kind of calm that comes from seeing every possible way people can mess up their lives and learning not to judge too quickly. "I think Miranda's moving money around," I said, keeping my voice level. "Small amounts, but regular. Always. Just under the radar. And I think there's someone else involved." Wesley nodded slowly, his expression giving nothing away. "But you're not looking to burn everything down in a dramatic explosion. I want to do this right, professional. When the time comes, I want to be steady and methodical, like closing a complex deal, not starting a war." I leaned forward. "Torque, not horsepower. You know what I mean?" He grinned into his coffee cup, the first real expression I'd seen from him all morning. "All right, Rich, let's be professional about this." We opened Coleman Equipment Solutions exactly 2 weeks later. Domestic LLC, properly registered to my home address, completely separate business banking account. Wesley walked me through the operating agreement like he was teaching me new sales software, methodical and thorough. We deposited my first severance check at a community bank where the teller still called you by name and remembered your kids' birthdays. "Keep the paperwork absolutely clean," Wesley advised, organizing documents in manila folders with precise labels. Your wife can say whatever she wants in court, but judges read documentation. Paper doesn't lie, and it doesn't get emotional. I started reaching out to my industry contacts immediately. 15 years in industrial equipment sales doesn't just disappear because your employer decides to restructure. I knew every plant manager, operations director, and procurement specialist from San Antonio to Dallas. More importantly, they knew me as the guy who found solutions instead of excuses. Rich Coleman? Hell yes, I remember you, said Carl Warren, operations manager at a packaging plant in Round Rock. You saved our production line when that overhead crane went down in 2019, sourced replacement parts in 48 hours when everyone else said it would take 2 weeks. What are you doing these days? Starting my own operation, equipment brokerage, surplus sales, custom sourcing, same service philosophy, better prices because I don't have corporate overhead. Send me your information. We always need reliable suppliers who understand our timelines. I bought and sold equipment from my garage initially, starting small but smart. A forklift here, an air compressor there, but the profit margins were solid and word spread through the tight-knit industrial community faster than I expected. Equipment sales is fundamentally a relationship business. People buy from people they trust, especially when downtime costs thousands of dollars per hour. At home, I kept my mouth shut and focused on making dinner every night. Miranda mostly ate standing up, scrolling through property listings on her phone, always in motion even when sitting still. We talked less and less, our conversations becoming transactional updates about schedules and logistics. When we did talk, she mentioned Cody with increasing frequency. Cody's really revolutionizing the logistics space, she'd say, gesturing with her wine glass. His startup just closed another funding round, Series A, $2.5 million. He's looking at commercial properties for expansion, satellite offices, corporate retreat centers, that kind of forward-thinking approach. I checked our joint bank statements every week, printing them out and filing them chronologically in a folder Wesley had given me. Small transfers from our joint account to a personal savings account I'd never seen before. 500 here, 1,000 there. Always just under the amounts that trigger automatic alerts from the bank's fraud detection system. Once she wrote office supplies as the memo for a $700 transfer to a jewelry store that definitely didn't sell staplers or printer paper. I printed that statement twice, highlighted the transaction in yellow, and didn't say a word. Wesley put everything in a folder with a red tab, organized by date and transaction type. You're building a solid case methodically, he told me during one of our weekly coffee meetings. Just keep breathing and documenting. Don't give her any reason to get suspicious or change her patterns. The week before my 52nd birthday, Miranda was in an unusually good mood. She told me to keep the entire day free, something she hadn't done in years. You're turning 52, she said, almost singing the words. We should celebrate properly, make it memorable. She arranged a surprise farewell party at my old office, coordinating with HR to use the main conference room. Invited all my former colleagues, had the company cater it with good food from that barbecue place off Blue Parkway. Ordered a custom cake from the fanciest bakery in downtown Austin. 3 layers, professional lettering, the works. Probably cost more than some people spend on groceries in a month. I knew then exactly how it would go. I could feel the setup in my bones like storm weather rolling across the hill country. That electric tension in the air before lightning strikes. The birthday cake wasn't celebration. It was theater. Miranda needed an audience for whatever she had planned. The party itself was everything Miranda orchestrated it to be. Good food, familiar faces, plenty of laughter about old times and war stories from the sales floor. Then came the surprise cake moment, wheeled out by Brady while everyone gathered around with their phones already positioned for optimal recording angles. Speech, speech, someone called from the back, probably Jim Morrison from accounting, who always enjoyed office drama more than he should. I should have seen it coming when Miranda's smile got too bright, too performed. Should have noticed Brady positioning himself for the perfect camera angle. Should have recognized the setup when everyone formed that perfect semicircle around me like a theater audience. But sometimes you're so focused on being gracious, on playing your expected role in someone else's narrative, that you miss the obvious signs that you're being set up for humiliation. The cake hit my face like a physical manifestation of every humiliation I'd swallowed over the past 6 months. Sweet, sticky, and recorded from multiple angles for maximum social media impact. The buttercream seemed to find every pore, every line around my eyes, turning what should have been a moment of professional farewell into viral content. That night, washing frosting out of my hair in the garage utility sink, I watched pink water swirl down the drain and felt something fundamental shift inside me. Not anger, something cleaner and more useful than that. Clarity. Pure, distilled clarity about exactly where I stood and what needed to happen next. I thought about Miranda standing there with her phone held high, chin up, eyes bright like she'd just closed the deal of her career. I tried to summon outrage, tried to access the righteous indignation that should come with public humiliation, and found only empty space where those emotions should live. Sometimes when you strip an engine completely down and clean every part with solvent, the metal comes out bright and purposeful, ready for precise assembly. That's how I felt standing in my garage that night, stripped clean of illusions and ready for reconstruction. In the morning, the kitchen smelled like stale celebration and sugar crash. Miranda stood at the granite island in her silk robe, scrolling through her phone with the focused attention of a day trader watching stock prices. The video already has 400 likes, she announced without looking up. People think it's absolutely hilarious. Sarah Henderson shared it to her stories, and you know she's got like 3,000 followers. I'm sure they do, I said, pouring coffee from the machine that cost more than my first car. Oh, don't be so dramatic about it, Rich. It was funny. You look so genuinely surprised. She finally glanced at me, probably checking to see if the humiliation was taking proper root. Maybe now you'll actually do something productive with all that free time, instead of hiding in the garage playing with old car parts. I studied the black surface of my coffee, like it might contain navigational charts for the conversation ahead. Actually, I have been doing something productive. Coleman Equipment Solutions is picking up significant momentum. Her fingers paused over the screen for exactly 2 seconds before resuming their scrolling pattern. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not hiding, Miranda. I'm building, systematically. Building what exactly? You can't just start some hobby business from our garage, Richard. This is a planned community with HOA regulations. There are codes about commercial activities in residential zones. All completely legal and above board. Wesley helped me structure it properly with correct permits and zoning compliance. Now I had her full attention. She set down her phone hard enough to make the granite ring like a bell. Wesley Torres, why are you talking to lawyers without discussing it with me first? Because successful businesses require proper legal structure and documentation. You'd understand that completely, being in real estate and working with contracts daily. Her face flushed slightly, the way it did when clients questioned her expertise or market knowledge. Don't be condescending with me, Rich. I'm making more money now than you ever did in your corporate job. I'm not competing with you, Miranda. I'm just not retiring to shuffle around the house in slippers watching daytime television. Life moved forward with the inexorable momentum of machinery properly maintained. People still needed industrial equipment, and I had the relationships to connect supply with demand more efficiently than companies burdened with corporate overhead. Spring turned into summer, summer into fall. Coleman Equipment Solutions grew from garage startup to legitimate regional operation. I leased a small warehouse space off Interstate 35, hired Patricia Klein as my administrative assistant, a sharp woman in her 50s who'd been downsized from the same corporate restructuring wave that caught me, started carrying inventory, real inventory, not just brokering deals, but stocking equipment that customers could see and touch before purchase. The first divorce hearing was professionally brief. Miranda wore a white blazer that probably cost what I used to make in a week, paired with her courtroom face, the same controlled expression she used with difficult clients who questioned property valuations. The judge was a woman approximately our age, who looked like she'd processed every possible variation of marital dissolution and retained no capacity for surprise. Wesley spoke quietly and methodically, his voice carrying the understated authority that comes from complete preparation. He walked through the financial transfers, the unexplained expenses, the timeline of irregular transactions with the precision of an engineer explaining mechanical tolerances. Miranda's lawyer objected to relevance at one point, but his tone suggested he knew he was playing defense with incomplete information. Mrs. Coleman, the judge said, not looking up from her notes. Can you explain this $700 purchase marked office supplies at Tiffany & Company? Miranda's courtroom composure developed its first visible crack. That was a client appreciation gift. High-end real estate requires relationship maintenance and gesture investments that show appreciation for significant transactions. The judge nodded slowly and wrote something in her legal pad that took longer than seemed necessary. Wesley didn't ask follow-up questions. He just let that explanation hang in the air like a loose wire sparking, drawing attention to its own implausibility. I went home and changed the oil in my truck, a ritual that had become meditative over the years. Drain the old, inspect the filter, install clean components, refill with fresh lubricant. Simple maintenance that prevents catastrophic failure down the road. That night, Miranda raised her voice for the first time in months. You're really going to drag this out? You're really going to make our private business public record for everyone to examine and judge? Her voice carried a new quality. Not anger exactly, but something sharper. Fear, maybe. The recognition that control was shifting in ways she hadn't anticipated. I'm not dragging anything, Miranda. The paperwork speaks for itself. You're being cruel, she said, her voice cracking slightly on the last word. I'm being thorough, I replied. That's different. Professional difference. We signed the settlement agreement on a Thursday morning in October, when the hill country light slanted through the courthouse windows at precisely the right angle to make everything look like a painting. My business, my tools, my future, all legally mine. The house would be sold within 6 months, proceeds divided after accounting for certain financial irregularities. Her real estate practice remained hers. Retirement accounts split according to state guidelines and actuarial calculations. The judge looked at me when everything was finalized, like she'd read between every line of the documentation and understood the larger story. I nodded back, acknowledgement between professionals who understood the value of proper procedure. I moved into a rental house in Muller, the old airport redevelopment, where they had transformed runways into walking trails and control towers into community centers. Small place with good bones, a 2-car garage that could accommodate serious work, and neighbors who understood the value of minding their own business. The kind of neighborhood where people worked with their hands and appreciated the sound of productivity. Setting up my workspace took 3 weekends of careful organization. Tool chests arranged by frequency of use, pegboard walls mapped out like surgical instrument displays, parts bins labeled with the precision of a pharmaceutical inventory system. I hung the Coleman Equipment Solutions sign above my workbench. Simple black letters on white aluminum, nothing fancy, just clear identification of purpose. The business grew with the steady momentum of machinery properly maintained. Word travels fast in industrial communities when someone consistently delivers exactly what they promise on schedule and under budget. Carl Warren referred me to 2 other plant managers. They referred me to their suppliers and procurement specialists. Pretty soon, I had a network spanning from Houston to Oklahoma City, built on handshakes and delivered promises. Rich Coleman saved our production schedule, became a refrain I heard secondhand from satisfied customers. Called him Tuesday with a crisis, had parts delivered Thursday, back online by Friday. That's the kind of supplier relationship that matters when downtime costs $20,000 an hour. Brady stopped by one evening in late November, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets like a kid working up courage for a difficult conversation with a school principal. He stood in my garage doorway, looking around at the organized chaos of inventory and equipment catalogs. "This what you're doing now?" he asked, his voice carrying genuine curiosity instead of the dismissive tone I'd grown accustomed to. "I like it," I said, not looking up from the procurement spreadsheet I was updating. "Honest work solving real problems. Good margins when you eliminate corporate overhead and focus on customer service." He kicked at an imaginary pebble on the concrete floor, a nervous habit he had had since childhood. "Mom says you're being vindictive about the divorce, that the settlement terms were unnecessarily harsh given the circumstances. Your mother's entitled to her interpretation of events. She's having some difficulties with client relationships. Says people in the industry are treating her differently, like they've heard rumors or something." I set down my pen and looked at my son directly. "Brady, what do you think vindictive means? Getting back at someone, being mean because you're hurt or angry. And what do you think accountability means?" He was quiet for a long moment, actually considering the question instead of deflecting with humor or changing the subject. Making someone face the consequences of their choices? Exactly right. Now you tell me. Which one describes holding someone responsible for documented financial misconduct during marriage dissolution proceedings? He didn't answer immediately, but something shifted in his expression. Understanding, maybe. Or just the beginning of recognition that situations might be more complex than social media narratives suggest. Winter settled into Austin, with the kind of crisp mornings that make you remember why people moved to Texas in the first place. I expanded the business methodically, better inventory management systems, strategic partnerships with regional distributors, preliminary discussions about opening a second location in San Antonio where the industrial market was growing. Brady started visiting more regularly, asking questions about business operations that showed he was thinking beyond social media metrics and viral content strategies. Smart questions about profit margins, customer retention, supply chain logistics. The kind of inquiries that indicated serious interest in understanding how real businesses function. "You hiring?" he asked one cold January morning, his breath visible in the garage air. "Depends. What do you know about industrial equipment?" "I know about building relationships with people. I know about understanding what customers actually want versus what they say they want. I know about presenting solutions in ways that make sense to their specific situations." I looked at him carefully, really examined his face instead of seeing the boy who'd laughed at my humiliation 6 months earlier. 26 years old, intelligent, ambitious, tired of helping people sell protein powder and life coaching courses through Instagram influence campaigns. "What about your mother? She's not going to appreciate you working for the enemy. Mom's got her own path to figure out. I need to find mine, and it's not going to be built on other people's drama or social media metrics that don't translate to anything meaningful." We shook hands across my workbench. Father and son, but also two adults choosing to collaborate towards something substantial and lasting. Spring brought the opportunity I'd been positioning for all winter. Coleman Equipment Solutions was invited to bid on a major contract, complete industrial modernization, for 3 manufacturing plants in the Austin metropolitan corridor, the kind of project that could establish us as a major regional player instead of just another equipment broker working from a garage. I spent 2 weeks preparing the presentation, researching every specification, contacting suppliers for detailed pricing, calculating timelines with the precision of mission planning. This wasn't just business development. It was proof of concept for everything I'd been building. The meeting was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon at a downtown hotel conference center. I invited key clients, supplier partners, and industry contacts. Not quite a grand opening, more like a professional coming out party. Formal presentation about our capabilities, our regional network, our commitment to Texas industrial growth. Miranda showed up, of course. I spotted her white Mercedes in the hotel parking garage, watched her walk across the lobby in sunglasses and a dress that probably cost more than my monthly warehouse rent. She positioned herself near the back of the conference room like someone attending a competitor's presentation for intelligence gathering. Cody wasn't with her. Word around Austin's business community was that his logistics software startup had burned through its Series A funding faster than a Formula One car burns tire rubber. Turned out that disrupting supply chain management was considerably more complicated than creating Instagram-worthy marketing presentations. Investors had questions about revenue projections that couldn't be answered with buzzwords and venture capital enthusiasm. I checked my notes one final time, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at 50 people who knew me as a professional rather than a punchline. Plant managers in work shirts, procurement specialists in business casual, distributors in suits that showed they understood the value of appearance in serious negotiations. Time to show them what Coleman Equipment Solutions could deliver. "Thank you all for being here this afternoon," I began, my voice carrying easily across the conference room without strain or performance. "I'm Rich Coleman. If we haven't done business together yet, that's an oversight I'd like to correct. For 15 years, I worked behind corporate logos and company policies, building relationships that generated millions in revenue for other people's operations. This is me stepping out on my own." The afternoon light slanted through the hotel windows and golden bars, carrying dust motes like confetti celebrating something long overdue. I saw familiar faces, plant managers in pressed work shirts, procurement specialists who'd trusted my recommendations for years, distributors who understood that reliability trumps flashy marketing every single time. Last year on my 52nd birthday, I got a cake smashed in my face, literally, recorded for social media posterity and shared with the internet for entertainment value. A few knowing chuckles rippled through the room. Word travels fast in tight business communities. Best thing that happened to me in years, because it forced me to ask one simple question. What am I going to do now? I held up a Coleman Equipment Solutions business card, like a preacher displaying scripture. I could spend my energy being offended. I could nurse grudges about public humiliation. I could waste time complaining about disrespect and unfair treatment. Or I could build something useful with the skills and relationships I'd spent 15 years developing. Turns out, useful feels considerably better than offended. The applause was genuine, not polite conference room courtesy clapping, but real recognition from professionals who understood the value of steady work and delivered promises. These were people who dealt with broken equipment and impossible deadlines, who knew the difference between talking and doing. I don't have a fancy presentation with animated slides and buzzwords about disrupting traditional industries. I've got proven experience, established relationships, and competitive prices. If you need equipment that actually works as specified, I'll source it. If you need solutions to problems that other suppliers won't touch, I'll figure them out. If you want overselling and under-delivering, there are plenty of other options in this market. I paused, letting that distinction settle. Not here. Someone started clapping. The room joined enthusiastically. Professional respect. The kind that translates to contracts and referrals and long-term business partnerships. I found Miranda's eyes near the back of the room. She'd removed her sunglasses, probably realizing that hiding behind them made her look defensive rather than mysterious. She appeared older than I remembered, but not unkind. Just tired, like someone who'd been running a race that turned out to be longer than expected. "Miranda," I said clearly, and the room went quiet, like I'd called time out in a championship game. "I want to thank you publicly for last year's birthday celebration. I'm completely serious about this. It provided clarity when I needed it most. It gave me motivation when I was drifting without clear direction. You were absolutely right about one thing. I needed more drive and ambition." A murmur moved through the room like wind through wheat fields. Miranda's face remained neutral, but her hands clenched slightly at her sides. Several people turned to look at her, probably recognizing the woman from local real estate advertisements. I found both. After my presentation, people lingered to discuss specific projects, exchange contact information, and share stories about equipment failures that had cost them production time and money. A packaging plant manager showed me photos of his vintage Camaro restoration project. A supplier's daughter asked about internship opportunities for engineering students. Brady moved through the room naturally, learning names and making connections without the performative energy of social media networking. The major contract discussions went better than I'd projected. 3 plant modernizations, 18-month timeline, equipment sourcing, and installation coordination, worth more than I'd made in my last 3 corporate years combined. Professional validation that felt more substantial than any employee recognition award I'd received. Miranda waited until the crowd dispersed before approaching, walking carefully like someone navigating unfamiliar terrain where the rules had changed without announcement. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "Thank me publicly. Make it seem like I did you some kind of favor. Didn't you? I thanked you genuinely. Made you part of a success story instead of just a divorce statistic." Her mouth formed a thin line. "I was angry and frustrated. I thought you were giving up on everything, and it felt like I was drowning with you. I thought if I pushed hard enough, you'd either fight back or completely break. Either way, I could stop feeling stuck in neutral. I did break, for a while. Then I rebuilt something better. You never fought back, never yelled or threw things or made dramatic scenes. It was maddening. I yelled plenty. The garage walls heard everything I needed to say." She glanced around the emptying conference room. Business cards scattered on tables, coffee cups marked with lipstick, the evidence of professional networking conducted properly. "Are you happy now, Rich?" I thought about morning light in my organized workspace, the satisfaction of solving complex supply chain puzzles, the way Brady's confidence had grown as he learned to add real value instead of just generating social media metrics. "I'm useful," I said. Turns out that's more reliable than happiness, more sustainable over time. I hope this works out for you. I really do. It already has. We completed the house sale in early summer. Miranda downsized her real estate practice, focusing on residential properties instead of chasing tech money that had largely evaporated with the startup bubble. Cody had moved to California, probably looking for the next venture capital opportunity that would appreciate his disruptive vision. Brady proved to have natural instincts for industrial sales, understanding that equipment business is fundamentally about problem solving rather than product pushing. His social media background helped him think systematically about customer relationship management and professional communication strategies. It's not actually that different from content creation, he explained one afternoon while updating our client database. You're still telling stories and building relationships, just different stories for audiences who care about reliability instead of entertainment. What's the story we're telling? That Coleman Equipment Solutions delivers exactly what we promise, when we promise it, at the price we quoted. That we understand Texas industry because we are Texas industry. That when customers call us, they get solutions instead of excuses or complications. Smart kid, smarter than I'd given him credit for during his Instagram marketing phase. Some nights I stayed late at the warehouse, drinking coffee that had gone cold hours earlier and listening to the building settle into its own rhythms. Industrial buildings hold their own weather patterns. The way concrete absorbs and releases heat. The way metal expands and contracts with temperature changes. The way dust finds its natural patterns of accumulation. On the anniversary of the cake incident, I locked up the warehouse and stood in the parking lot under Texas stars that seemed closer than they had in years. The Coleman Equipment Solutions sign hummed quietly under its floodlight, announcing our presence to anyone driving the highway at midnight. Sometimes people tell me I got my revenge on Miranda. Maybe that's accurate in the way people need to categorize complex situations. But revenge sounds petty and temporary, and what I built feels larger and more permanent than that. I got my work back. I got my name on something my hands created. I got to stand in front of people who mattered and speak like someone who didn't owe explanations or apologies to anyone. I got usefulness, and usefulness doesn't fade like applause or social media validation. Peace is quieter than revenge, but it lasts longer. You drink your coffee while it's hot. You maintain your equipment before it breaks. When someone calls you weak, you let the word pass through you like wind through screen mesh, then pick up your tools and keep building. Strength isn't a speech or a social media post. It's what you do when nobody's recording, when the cameras are off and the audience has gone home. If this reminds you of a time you had to rebuild quietly, I'd like to hear about it. What industry? What city? What moment made you stop apologizing and start constructing something worthwhile? I'll be here most days, warehouse door open, ready to solve problems that matter with people who understand the difference between making noise and making progress.